Namaste, my name is Jyoti Daya and welcome to Learning with JD. I hope you've seen my previous video where we've spoken about the introduction of PMP. In the last video that was published on 17th May 2020, we spoke about what the PMBOK is, what are the purpose of PMBOK, what are the components of PMBOK. It's an extremely important video for you to move forward, so I request you to go back in case if you've not seen it, to go back and view that video and come back. So in today's video we are going to talk about the various environments in which the project operates. There are two basic environments that impacts the project, certain external, certain internal. We'll see all of them as to what is the impact of them on our project and how are we going to deal with it. In brief, we are also going to see some of the important principles of PMO's office. So that's the component of today's session. Before we start the video, I request you to like, share and comment on the video that I've uploaded in the last weekend. I also request you to subscribe to my channel to get a notification of all the videos that I keep on uploading. So what are we waiting for? Let's start. So let me quickly give you a perspective of what we are going to cover today. So just to remind you, you are on Learning with JD. All right, let's begin. So we know we are going to talk about the environment in which the project operates. So there are various factors that impact the operation of the project. So we are going to look at all of them and the environment in which we operate. What are we going to cover today? We'll see an overview of the same. We'll see what are enterprise environmental factors, that are EEFs, oftenly known as EEFs. We'll also look at what are the organizational process assets. We often call it as OPAs. And we will also look at the organizational systems. We'll see all of them in quite detail. So what do you think are the influence on the project? Yeah, how do you think and why do you feel that is there something that is going to impact your project? Why do you feel that something will influence your project? You are the project manager, you are managing your project quite well, you have a team with you and you're working on the project. But still, there are certain factors which are going to influence your project. The project exists and operate in these environments. They do have influence on the project. The takeoff or getting down of the project depends upon all these influences. There will be some influences that are going to be favorable. People are going to support you. There will be some which are going to be unfavorable for your project. You should know how you're going to deal with all of them. The ones which are favorable, you need to ensure that they are on your side. The ones which are unfavorable, you have to ensure that they get to your side. There are majorly two categories of influences. Enterprise environmental factor. Remember this word. This is going to be one of the input for most of the planning processes for you. These are EEFs, often called as EEFs in the PMP language. And the second one is organizational process assets. We often call it OPAs. Let's see both of them in detail. Now, what do you think when you hear the word enterprise environmental factor? What do you mean by enterprise? Enterprise means an overall picture, an overall surrounding. It is not originated from within the project, but it is originated from outside the project and also outside of the organization. It is at an economical level. It is at an industry level. It is not only binded with your organization or with your project. It has a larger viewpoint. It originates from the environment outside of the project and often outside of the enterprise too, right? We'll see what are the examples in detail. And the other one is organizational process assets, OPAs. Now, what do you understand when you hear the word organizational process assets? Yes, the assets which are within the organization. It may have an impact from a different program, from a different portfolio, from a different project. It can even be a combination of a project from a particular program. We saw in detail what is a program and a project in the previous video. You can view that, you can go back and view that previous video in case if you have any doubts about what is the difference between project, program, portfolio and operations. We've spoken about this in detail in the previous video. But whereas, yes, coming back to today's session, OPAs generate from the organization itself. It can be a part of the existing project, it can be a part of the other project, program, portfolio, where it may be. Yeah? Alright, moving on. Now let's see what are EEFs in detail. So you need to understand the most important part about EEFs is that it is not under the control of a project team. So where we talk about project team, you as a project manager is also a part of the project team, right? So whatever the influence of an EEF is going to be, it can be a constraint or it directs your project, you do not have control over that. So that's the most important thing that you need to understand, and that's the clear bifurcation between what is an EEF and what is an OPA. Right? EEF, you do not have control over it. It is an external thing. It is external to your organization, external to your project. It has, you don't have a control over that. So whatever it is, it just comes. You have to accept it the way it is. Yeah. EEFs are considered as inputs in most of the planning processes. Why? Why do you think that EEFs are important while we are planning? There are going to be n number of factors that are not internal to your organization but will impact your project. For example, the dollar price goes ups and down. For example, the warehouse cost is going to be expensive, the raw material will come down. So there are certain things which are going to be favorable to you. You have to ensure that you grab them. There will be certain things that are going to be unfavorable. You have to ensure how you're going to manage them. So while we talk about the EEFs, there are factors. There can be a regulatory change. It is an EEF, right? So it is an input while you're planning. So while you plan, you have to make sure that you consider all these factors. You cannot be planning in isolation. You cannot be planning only for your organization. When it's a large project, you do have to take into consideration the other factors of the ecosystem. Yeah. There are certain EEFs that are internal. There are certain EEFs that are external. Let's see what are there. So the organizational culture, the structure, the governance, the infrastructure. What do you mean by infrastructure? Where your office is, where the warehouse is, where the factory is, where the project is going to be executed, right? The resource availability. There will be certain resources which may not be available for your project. The employee capability. You have a resource but do not have the capability of doing it, right? And some of the software, technology softwares. There are more examples to it. These are just some of the key ones. These are internal. You can manage them. They are with you. You know how to manage it. So now these are internal. You have to see that how are these going to impact to your project. And while you talk about EEFs, the external one, the marketplace condition, right? We all know what is happening today in the entire globe. The COVID-19 has hit us hard, right? That is an external factor that you do not have control over. Legal restriction. So the legal restrictions are the ones in case there are any regulatory changes that come up. The commercial database. What do you mean by commercial database? In certain areas, the price for certain products are fixed. In certain areas, the price for labor is fixed. That is something which is known as commercial database. Government or industry standards. You have to comply with it, right? There will be certain standards of your organization, but there are certain standards, like the security standards. It is at an industry level. You need to take care of all that. And the physical environmental elements. All are these some external EEFs which you do not have control over. Alright. So now organizational process assets. Now what are OPAs? What do you think organization process assets are? What do you mean by assets? Assets are something that we have collected over the years. Organizational processes are nothing but plans, processes, your policies, your knowledge areas, your lessons learned, everything that has learned from over a period of time, and it is stored there as a part of the organizational repository. is organizational process assets. At every point of time, the project manager has the authority of using the plans, the processes which have been used before. It is known as lessons learned. Lessons learned is one of the most important input while you are planning. Because if somebody has made a mistake, you don't want to repeat that mistake. If somebody has done good for a particular project in a particular manner, you should adopt it, right? So, and that's how lessons learned is important. Whatever you take from previous projects or historical information, all these are important factors. They are grouped into two categories: processes, policies and procedures. So that is the one category, and organizational knowledge base. We will see both of them in detail now. What are the process, policies and procedures, and the organizational base. The processes, policies and procedures has an impact on all the 5 process groups. Let's see how does it actually impact. Let's start with initiating and planning. We saw in the last weekend what are the 5 process groups. 5 fingertips, remember: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and closing. So we'll see how does this impact on all the 5 process groups. So for initiating and planning, it provides like a guideline. Because at the time when you are planning, you want to know what are the different types of policies which are available in the organization. You want to know what are the different processes of doing, what is the product and the project life cycle, what are different templates. You can't get up and say that, okay, this is the template that I like and I want to use it for my project. No, there's an organization level project template which is already finalized. You need to use that, right? So that's the template that comes up in the initiating and the planning process. Now, how does it help in the executing and monitoring and controlling process? Every project, the moment the planning gets over and the execution has begun, in case if there is any change in the scope of the project or cost of the project or time of the project or quality of the project, anything, it has to go through change control board. Now, what is the process of the change control? Is a part of your processes, policies and procedures. This is what is helpful at the time of executing and monitoring and controlling. All the financial control procedures you will need at the time of execution, because while you are doing your execution of the project, you need to know at what point of time how much are you going to spend and all that stuff. Similarly, for your monitoring and controlling, because while you do your monitoring and controlling, you should know what are the financial controls that you have to implement and what you need to take care of. Now, resource availability control also is an important part. You are using your resources, but how are you going to control them? How are you going to control the availability of the resources? And another important part while you are executing. Resources are most important while at the time of execution of a project, right? Because while you're executing, that's when your resources are a part of your key project team, right? The team who actually works on the project. And the time of closing, the project closure guidelines or the requirements. Because at the time of every closure of the project, you need to prepare a document which is known as lessons learned. So you need to know what is the guideline and what is the procedure of closing a project. You can't just close the project. There can be a possibility that you need to take a signature from the sponsor. There can be a possibility that you need to show a prototype to the stakeholders, to the sponsor before closing the project, right? Before handover of the entire project. So that is something which is very important. So we see how does it impact, how does the process, policy and procedures impact initiating and planning, executing and monitoring and controlling, and closing. At every point of time, you need your OPAs, that is organizational process assets. Now, what are the organizational knowledge repositories? Yeah, organizational knowledge repositories are for storing and retrieving information. It is a repository. It's nothing but a database of all the information that an organization has. Now, this repository can have the configuration management knowledge, financial data, historical information, your lessons learned. All the data repositories are a part of the organizational knowledge repository. So you may get a 1-mark question here that you're trying to refer to a document which is prepared by a previous project manager of, who's managed a project of a similar kind in the past, and which repository segment are you referring to? It is organizational knowledge repository. This repository has all the capability of storing and retrieving information. As a project manager, the day the project charter is prepared, we saw it in the previous video that the day project charter gets prepared, project manager gets a job and gets the authority of using the organizational process assets. Organizational knowledge repository is a part of it. What are the organizational systems? Each project has to work within the constraint which is imposed by the organization. No project can be worked outside the governance of the organization. Every organization has its fixed level of governance framework, its structure. Your project has to work within the framework of that particular governance and the structure that has been created by the organization. To operate efficiently and effectively, the project manager needs to understand what is the responsibility and what is the accountability and who is the authorized person in that organization, who has the authority of signing documents, clearing it, whatever, depending upon the organization to organization. So that is a part of organization system. You have to work within the system, right? You live wherever you live. You have to be a part of the system where you reside. Similarly, while you are working, you have to be a part of the system where you work. And specifically the governance work frame. The governance plays an important role in this. What is a system? A system is a collection of various components that together can produce results which an individual component cannot do. That is what is known as system. System is not one component. System is a group of components that comes together to create a particular output, a result. Right? There are several principles regarding system. Some of them are laid down here. Like it has to be dynamic, it can be optimized, it can be optimally used. Yeah, the system components can be optimized. The components cannot be optimized at the same time. Systems are non-linear and responsive. Now let us see what are the organizational governance framework. What do you mean by governance? Governance refers to the organizational or structural arrangement at all levels of an organization. Now whatever the framework of an organization has been set, the project manager, the sponsor, the team, everybody has to work within the same framework. As we said, governance is a framework within which authority is exercised in an organization. Everything has to work within the authority within the organization. Further to that, it includes the rules, the policies, procedures, norms, relationships, systems, processes, everything related to how a certain thing has to be performed is a part of the governance framework. This framework influences how three important aspects. Objective of the organizations are set and achieved. Very important, right? There is two ways of achieving something. There's a right and an organized manner of doing it, and there's an unorganized and a not so good manner of achieving something. The governance framework ensures that the objectives of the organizations are set and achieved in a particular manner. The risk is monitored and assessed. It cannot be left away. Risks are something which has to be monitored at every level. Governance ensures that risk is always monitored and also assessed. Performance is optimized. Everything relates to performance. Everything relates to performance. Finally, it is the output that matters. Now let's see how does governance has an impact on all the three factors. We saw portfolio, then we have programs, and then we have a project. Project at an individual level, program which is a combination of multiple projects which has the same output or a related output, and portfolio is a mix of programs, project. It can be at an organization level as well. It is basically at a strategic level. So what does the governance at portfolio, program and project mean? It describes a common governance framework. It aligns to your organizational project management and portfolio, program and project management. Now, something that gets these two together, that the organizational objective and your portfolio, program and project objective meets, is under the governance framework. The practice guide describes 4 governance domains of alignment, risk, performance and communication. The project is to be aligned. It should know what it is. Risk has to be monitored and assessed. Performance is to be monitored and optimized. And communication is the key. Communication should always be available. Project government refers to the framework and the functions that guide to the project management activities. Why? In order to create a unique product, service or result. Why? To meet the organizational, strategic and operational goal. Very important. Please remember this. This is going to clear all your fundas. The project governance is what? It is a framework, it is a function and it is processes that guide the project activities. We saw what are project activities, right? We spoke in the last weekend session. Project activities is anything that you do related to your project. In order to why? What is the output that you're looking for? You have to create a project, you have to create a unique product, service or a result. Why? To meet the organizational and strategic and operational goals. So that is what the project governance refers to. Now, what are some of the management elements? Now, let's see what are the management elements and how is it going to be beneficial to your project. Management elements are the components that comprise the key functions and principles of general management in the organization. Now, we have often seen that questions come up which says that if there is a candidate who has 100% experience in project management and there's a different candidate who has say 33% experience on general management and 33% experience on product management, 33% experience on project management, who would you choose? The correct answer is the second option, because the person with a general management is more important and is more useful for you, because only project management will not drive you through successful completion of a project. General management is as equally as important as project management specialization is. The general management elements are allocated within the organization according to its governance framework. Right? So it is important that a person also has general management skills along with project management skills. Organizational structure types. Now, what do you mean by organization structure? There can be many forms and many types of organization structure. It all depends. There is no one size fits all structure anywhere available across the globe. Every organization, yes, there can be a possibility that they have structure in a particular manner, but those manners are mostly different for every organization. Every organization has its own way of managing the structure. What you as a project manager has to ensure that you are within the structure of that organization. Whichever organization you work for, you have to ensure that you are a part of that structure. The final structure for a given organization is always unique due to the numerous variables which are considered. And hence we always say that the organization structure is different for every organization. The factors in the organization structure selection. Now, on what basis will an organization select a structure and not select another structure? Each factor may carry a different level of importance in the final analysis. Now, it doesn't matter that what factors it is. It can be any factor. It can be the strength of the organization. It can be the geolocation of the organization. It can be what business the organization is. Now, these are the various factors that are important for choosing the organization structure. The combination of the factor, its value, right? And the relative importance. These are also the factors which are taken into consideration for making a decision as to what kind of structure is to be finalized. Some key factors are: what is the delegation capability? There are some organizations who do not believe in a lot of delegation. These are typically linear type of an organization where the staff strength will be very less. It doesn't have a very hierarchical type of structure. Accountability assignment. How are you going to assign the accountability of the project? What are the responsibility assignment? How does it adapt to the changes? What are the simplicity of the design? So these are all the factors that generally an organization takes into consideration while creating a structure. Now let's see what is the role of a project management office. What do you mean by a PMO? A PMO is at an organization level. It is an organization structure that standardizes the project related governance processes and facilitates the sharing of resources, methodology and tools and techniques. So that is the role of the project management office. Project management office takes care at an organization level to ensure that the resources are well distributed. Wherever the project is of high importance, that resources allocated to that project. What are the methodology, what are the tools and techniques that will be used for a particular project? That's the role of a project management office. Now there are several types of PMOs, typically three: supportive, controlling and directive. Let's see all three of them in detail. Now what is a supportive type of a PMO? A supportive type of a PMO provides consultative role only. It generally provides consultative role. Whenever the project manager needs some support, it will come to the PMO and ask for some support. It typically provides training material, templates, all the best practices of the previous projects. All these are the supportive documents that the supportive PMO provides. The degree of control of this PMO is very low on your project. You have a higher authority on the project and the PMO has a lower control on the project. Now what is the second category? Second is controlling. They support and require compliance through various means. They keep on always knowing as to what is happening on the project. The degree of the control of this type of PMO is moderate. It's not that it is very low also. It's not that their job is just to provide templates, but they will always know, or they will always try to support your project. And they will also understand what is the compliance happening. Are you on compliance and what are you doing with the risk? Now that is a controlling PMO. Now what is directive? They take complete control of the project by directly managing the projects. There are some critical strategic level projects which are often managed by a directive PMO type of an setup. Now these projects are under directive PMO. Here the control of the PMO is very high, right? Now let's see some of the primary function of the PMO, what the PMO is supposed to do. It manages the shared resources. We spoke about this before as well. Resources is one of the key things in any organization. So it manages the shared resources across all the projects. It helps in identifying and developing the project management methodology. Now whatever changes, it happens from time to time. So there is a methodology which is there in an organization. Will it go on forever and ever? No, right? There is something that will always keep on changing. With the change in time, the best practices will keep on changing, the standards will keep on changing, the processes will keep on changing. Now that is the job of a PMO. It will help in coaching, mentoring, providing training, support, and providing the oversight of the entire industry. At an industry level also, you will get a lot of support from the PMO. If you need some information as to what your peer competition is doing, you should always approach your PMO, and the PMO will be very happy to share with you an oversight as to what and how the industry is shaping up. Yeah. Some more primary functions of the PMO is monitoring on the compliance with the project management standards, policies, procedures, and templates by means of project audits. Now PMO's job is to ensure that the project audits are done. They will ensure that the templates are used. They will ensure that the procedures are followed, right? So that is the primary function of a PMO. They will do these activities. Developing and managing the project policies, procedures, templates. They are the one who are going to prepare and manage and develop the project policies. Now, it can be any type of PMO setup. It can be directive, it can be supportive, it can be controlling, but these are the primary functions. They will follow all these functions, right? They will be coordinating the communication across the project. So they will definitely follow these functions that they have to do. It can be under any setup. Understood? All right. So thank you for watching today's video, guys. That is it from my end. We've seen how do we manage the internal and the external factors of the project, and I think this is exactly what we need to understand, and we are going to learn about this in much detail in the next weekend. The next weekend session is particularly on managing the EEFs, that is the enterprise environmental factors, and OPAs, that is organizational process assets. We are going to talk about them in detail. The next video is going to be available on 31st May 2020. I request you to subscribe to my channel to never miss a video. Also view the video that was uploaded in the last weekend, that was 17th May, that talks about the introduction of PMP. So subscribe to my channel and see you next weekend. Till then, keep studying and all the best.